this is the year Swimrun's going to blow up in the US. Like, they didn't believe me, but I think I'm right. I think this is the year.
We think you're right, too.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz. I am Chip.
And I'm Chris. Welcome to our first show.
A Swimrun podcast.
Yes, that's what this is.
Yes, and this is our first official episode.
Hell yeah.
So we're very excited, and we have an interview for you later on in the show, but we kind of wanted to go and provide a loose expectations of what you can look forward to listening to. We're going to give an update on how our training going, what is our A race this season or thus far, and any new equipment or results from around the swimrun world, and then we'll get into the interview.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. This is you're a podcast expert, but this is the first time I'm on a podcast, so this is going to be a lot of fun to sort of share our journey in the sport while we try to sort of grow the sport in the U.S. and try to get people to take on these adventures that are all around us and are just really fun to do with a partner. Yeah,
so Chris and I, we're the Low Tide Boyz. That's our team name as well.
With a Z.
With a Z. lowtideboyz.com. Our A race, I guess, thus far is going to be Ötillö Swimrun Catalina.
Yep, long course, World
Series distance.
Yeah, that's right. And our little A race later in the year will likely be Orcas. Orcas Bay, I think it's called.
Orcas Island.
Orcas Island.
Orca,
right.
one islands. I was corrected.
Okay.
By somebody who
actually did it.
Lived there.
Oh, lived there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Orca Islands.
Okay.
And that's by Odyssey Swimrun, and that's later in September.
Yeah. I'm
so
really excited about that one because of all the running.
But, yeah, that's more of a run-heavy one. Ötillö Swimrun Catalina is the last few days in February.
Yep.
The 29th to March. And that's down on the L.A. area for anyone not intimately familiar with Southern California.
Or California.
Or California in general. So we're doing the World Series race, which comes in, oh boy. These are going to be in meters. The total race distance, 37,900 meters. The trail running is 30,000 meters.
Yeah.
The swim is 7,600 meters.
So 30K, it's like about 18 miles of running.
Yeah, 19 miles of running. 4 something-ish miles of swimming.
Yeah.
There's 7 swim sections. And the longest swim is 1,600 meters. The longest run is 9,500 meters, about 10 Ks.
Mm-hmm.
And then the total elevation gain is 1,300 meters, which would be like 4,000.
Yeah.
Let me do that.
Yeah.
Let me do some quick Google fooing.
And what's cool about it, one of the run legs actually run up and over the Catalina Island that we're going to be on. So that should be pretty fun. Our previous swim runs have been more on the flat side, so it'll be interesting to be, doing some serious climbing in a wetsuit. Might be get a little toasty.
4,300 feet of elevation gain on that one. So
Lovely.
We're looking forward to that. Actually, when doing some comparison to the Cole Classic from the Odyssey Swimrun folks there in the Portland, Maine area, very similar feeling segments. Like the swim and run segments are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're definitely stoked for that.
Should
now
be fun.
We're in the thick of holiday break.
Yeah, we're quote training.
We're training right
unquote.
now. So, Chris, how has your training been going the past few weeks?
Well, I'm 15 pounds overweight.
Yeah, same.
So there's definitely work to be done. I feel like my run is fine. I'm super not worried about the run. But, January, we're going to be putting some pretty heavy swim sets in the pool and in the ocean to get ready for this. And we're going to have a future guest of the podcast is a triathlon coach who actually wrote a swim plan
or
for me.
multi-sport coach.
Multi-sport coach who wrote a swim plan for me a couple years ago, and we're just rehashing that thing because it's diabolical. So we'll have him on the show to talk about this crazy swim build we're going to try to do, just for mostly for shits and giggles, but also to just try to be super prepared.
Yeah. So I think our lessons learned from our last swim run event that Chris and I did was more swimming. So after that race, I didn't swim for 18 months or a year, and then now just getting back into it. But yeah, I think we're 8 weeks out from the race now, and it's a little bit of fear-based training.
Yeah.
But also, I think our expectations going into the race are to have a good race, but we're in no way intending to finish at the top of our category, or we just want to have a fun adventure and cut our teeth and just experience an Ötillö branded race.
Yeah, I think to us this feels like, we've done pretty much every triathlon you could do in terms of distance-wise and brand-wise. So, to experience sort of the Ironman level, event. But yeah, work hard, have the adventure. And I think, our previous experiences in Swimrun have definitely prepared us for sort of embracing a little bit more of the unknown.
Yeah.
And just sort of being, comfortable dealing with ambiguity, whether in terms of distance and elevation or, aid station support or whatever. So I think we'll definitely be super prepared for this race and just to represent, for the Low Tide Boyz.
Totally. And personally, some things I'm going to be working on is having a little bit better swim endurance and focusing on my nutrition a little bit, because I think that kind of went sideways for both of us, I feel, on that race. On the last one we did. But yeah, so that's how we're doing. Any new gear or anything of significance that you wish to bring up? I believe since the last time we've probably chatted, Roca has a new Swimrun wetsuit.
Yeah.
And then we just came across this cool brand called Arc Swimrun, ARK. They're Swedish, and they're also one of the key sponsors for Ötillö this year.
Yeah, they make a cool undershirt. I mean, one of the problems with Swimrun is you got to carry a bunch of stuff that's
with no
mandatory.
Pockets.
And some of the Swimrun suits have, they're not all created equal, but some have more pockets than others. So these guys made like an undershirt. It's kind of like a cycling undershirt.
Yeah.
With some pockets in it. So
called the Kangaroo.
Oh, yeah. Cool name.
Yeah. I'd be curious about trying one of those out.
Yeah, I think that'd be good, especially like the longer the course, the more nutrition you want to have on board.
If you're doing the world champ race, you're running 40 something miles. Like you have to have something. So
yeah, that's big. It's a long day.
That's a long day. Cool. Well, we'll stop droning on here, and we're excited to bring you our first interview.
Yeah, our first interview is with Kelly O'Mara. She's a professional writer and reporter in Northern California, and she's also a professional triathlete. She's the co-host of her own podcast called If We Were Riding, which is available everywhere. She also has a newsletter by that same name, and is just an all-around awesome human being. I used to train with her on the bike back in the day when I was still riding my bike.
And we met on the ferry at Cole Classic.
Yeah, that's right. You met her on the ferry.
I think I zipped her wetsuit up.
yeah. You met her on the ferry, her and her partner, which is pretty funny. So we'll be chatting with her about her journey in discovering and racing in Swimrun as a pro triathlete, and then what she thinks about the sport and how we can grow it in the U.S. So super excited for that conversation. All right, well, our guest today is Kelly O'Mara. She's a writer and reporter in Northern California. She's also a professional triathlete, awesome human being. She's a co-host of her own podcast called If We Were Riding, which is available everywhere, wherever you get your podcasts. And her and I used to train together. We've been on a couple bike rides back in the day when she lived in Marin County. and I don't think I was ever able to keep up with you, but that's neither here nor there. And she's joining us today to talk about her own journey in Swimrun and chat about the sport and how she sees it growing. So welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. Swimrun is super fun. So glad you guys are doing this.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess the first question is, tell us a little bit about your sort of athletic CV, kind of like how you came up in the sport, definitely triathlon, and then how you discovered Swimrun.
Yeah, so I did the kind of the thing everybody does, growing up, all the sports. And then I actually kind of started doing triathlon in college. So I'm a pretty big advocate of like the college club scene. I don't know if you guys know about it, but it's just it's super fun, super welcoming. And because it's historically been a club sport, obviously it's starting to be an NCAA thing, and that's, a totally different ballgame. But because it was a club sport when I was there, it's kind of open to anyone. Like we had people trying to make the Olympics, and we had people who had like never ridden a bike. So it's really, really fun.
Well, it's funny, like my first experience in the triathlon club scene was being at Wildflower Triathlon, which people don't know. That's like the Woodstock, or used to be the Woodstock of triathlon. It was just like a bunch of,
campsites
and people running around naked and stuff. It was really fun.
And a lot of college kids. Like that was always our big end of the year. Everybody got
it's like a party.
Yeah.
Or it is a party, actually.
It is a party, yeah. So,
and you won that one year?
I did win Wildflower, not in college, a couple years ago. Yeah, but Wildflower's gotten way, anyway, separate point. Wildflower's not really around anymore. But I did win that win the amateur, kind of my last year racing as an age grouper, which was 4 years ago. Yeah, so like 4 years ago, I kind of upgraded to race pro. Just because I, thought it was time. It was time to do that. So I've been racing pro for 3 years now as a triathlete. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, at some point you just have to stop kicking age groupers' asses.
Yeah.
And,
it's an interesting thing. I had never done Kona basically, and I qualified for Kona, kind of in my first big Ironman. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do Kona. And then and I'm going to upgrade after that. Like, I'm not going to be one of those people who goes to Kona every year. So
I got respect for folks that do that.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it once though. I wanted to see what Kona was all about. And, it's a crazy scene. So
nice. And I know, I met you on the ferry to the island when we were both doing the Cole Classic. So how did you even hear about Odyssey Swimrun and the Cole Classic?
Yeah, or Swimrun in general, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good question. One of my friends, who's actually the editor of Triathlete Magazine, had done the Ötillö. I always say that wrong. How do you say Ötillö, actually?
Ötillö.
Right. She had done the big one over in Sweden, that was kind of like the only one, or, the 10 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, the world champion race. Yeah.
Right. And so I'd heard about it and I was like, this is crazy. That sounds ridiculous. And then you just started to hear more and more about, you know what I mean? It just started to seem like more and more people were doing, and then, my coach was signed up to do it. Just was, there was a lot of buzz. Yeah. And so I wanted to do I guess they're calling it the Cole Classic now. At the time, it was kind of like Swimrun USA, and then they changed the name.
Yeah. Odyssey.
Yeah. And I actually did it. I wanted to do it like a year before, and I couldn't get in. It was sold out. We had like messed up. And so they gave me an entry actually to write an article about it for ESPN.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that was like the whole premise. Yeah. So I was going to write about it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, gotcha. So before getting the ESPN gig to write about it, were you already thinking like, I kind of want to transition into this or want to explore this more? This seems like a lot of fun. Like, what was the thought process? And because, for us, it was like, hey, this looks like a new adventure and you don't have to travel with a bike. I'm in.
Yeah.
I was originally supposed to do it with like kind of one of my training buddies who is also a pro triathlete. And I think at the time, like she summed it up, it feels like we're in the early years of triathlon again. It feels like we're back doing something that's like gonna be cool.
Yeah.
And we'll have been there on the ground floor. So that was kind of our take. We're like, this is like the original spirit again. This is gonna be like, we're gonna be proud that we were, at the first race or whatever. Because it is growing like hugely now. And triathlon doesn't have that feel anymore. Triathlon now is like very, there's a system. It's very structured. it's very set.
Corporate. It's very corporate.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the courses are all, it's either sprint, Olympic, half, full,
very standardized,
unless you have like the Escape from Alcatraz, there's very few sort of unique distances.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there was kind of, and I mean, maybe I'm like projecting, but at least among like my friends who race pro and stuff, there was kind of a feeling in the last couple of years that like I don't know if boring is the right word, but it's getting a little like, okay, now I'm just going to go out and do the exact same thing and like run circles around a parking lot and like, is that what I'm looking for? And so we were like, swim run, that'll be fun. That'll be different, which is probably why you're getting a lot of triathletes coming over to swim run, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Ourselves included.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, even you go to these pre-race meetings and stuff, if you ask triathletes or former or current triathletes to raise their hand, probably getting huge percentage of the room.
30-40%, I would feel. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know the race was about a year ago, but how you ended up on the podium with your partner? How did you feel the whole experience was? Was it everything you were hoping for?
So my actual original partner, and I think this is what's so hard about swimrun, is like getting your partner and both of you being healthy and sticking.
Yeah.
She broke her toe and got pregnant and ended up not doing it with me. And so I was like searching all around for somebody else to do it. And so a friend who's like a former pro triathlete decided to come out of retirement and do it with me.
Nice.
But so we went in with the attitude of like, she was not in shape. We were just going to have fun. And so it was just really like, I think when you're just like, oh, we're just going to have fun out here, it's a totally different experience. Because, yeah, that was just like super, I don't want to say low key, but, it wasn't stressful. Because this year I went back with my original partner and we were like trying to race it. And that's a totally different thing. That's like very hard.
Yeah, there was some of those run legs. I mean, you were just running through the thick of like a forest, it felt like.
Oh, yeah, we got lost.
Yeah,
we were like in a bog somewhere, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like running through people's backyards and stuff. Yeah, I mean, and that race, it was fun because, I saw you guys I think I knew that you were in 2018, that I knew you guys were racing because we chatted about it.
Right.
And, we saw you on the ferry and just, kind of like shot the shit until the race started. And we actually started running together. And then we jumped off that pier after the first run leg, and then we just never saw you again.
Right.
And we hit the water, and you did your thing, and we did ours.
You guys swam
I feel like that's
straight,
what happens, right? You like never, people just like disappear into the wild. You never see them. Yeah.
Yeah, that was I mean, I feel like the sense of adventure that you get. I mean, I'm curious as a pro triathlete, like, obviously there's a lot of pressure to perform and all that stuff in sort of on the Ironman stage and stuff like that. Did you find that, it was just like a relief to just do something for fun and have this like journey? Or were you like, I still feel the pressure of performing because I'm a quote pro? Did you put that on you, or you were just out there to have fun?
Well, the first one I did the last year in 2018, I mean, that was just fun, like zero pressure, like wasn't worried about it. Mostly because, my friend who did it with me had agreed to do it like 3 weeks before. It just was like, whatever.
Yeah.
This year when I went and did the one in Maine again, in August, that was more stressful because we were really trying to race it. We like definitely wanted to win and we didn't, because the level of competition's also gotten significantly higher. Yeah, it's pretty intense now. And racing swim run is like really going for it. Like people know what they're doing. It's really intense and you're definitely going to hurt yourself and fall. And like if you're like really going all out. So that was like that was a little more stressful. So.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there was that rock scramble, which was only a half mile, but you were bouldering on slippery algae rocks. Like if you were trying to race across that, you're smashing your shin a couple times for sure.
Oh, yeah. And then I saw the people who win, like, never really even unconnect themselves. So I don't know how they do that. Because if you're running all out,
well, that just takes seconds.
Yeah, I mean, our tether turned into a noose within one leg for us.
Yeah.
I'd be curious if you could touch on a little bit about if you did any specific swim run training, or if you just kind of kept to your normal triathlon training and then did a couple practice swim runs. Like, tell me your process for that.
I think it probably depends on like how you train for triathlon, but because I do a lot of trail running, that wasn't like a huge issue for me. I think if you did all of your running on roads or bike paths, you'd like need to do some, trail specific running, and I do a ton of paddle swimming. So that's just like, it's already incorporated in my training. If it wasn't, you'd probably need to incorporate that more. And then I did do a couple of times just, some swim run specific workouts, getting in and out just to like practice all the gear and the transitions. And for me, like the hardest thing for me is running in a wetsuit for whatever reason. Like I'm dying. I'm just sitting there like wanting to like rip everything off my chest, right? And I hate it. So I find that very hard. Actually.
So do you just like pop the swim cap and, zip down?
I did. Yeah. It's definitely like a zip down situation, but I don't know why. It just feels like it feels very constricting. I need to work on this. Like it feels like you're carrying a huge amount of weight, like you're running with a weight vest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's particular wetsuit, or do you think it's just you just need to get used to it? I mean, I guess that for people that are just starting off swimming with a wetsuit, that can be a pretty constricting thing, and you just gotta get used to it. But
if you're not used to it, it's probably just getting used to it. And I think it's also one of the things that's like, what's unique about swim run is it isn't just swimming and running. Like when I try to explain to other people, they're like, "Oh, you're doing a duathlon." You're like, "No,
yeah,
it has other stuff." And so I think all those little things, everybody struggles with different parts of it, right? Like some people find the swimming with like all their shoes on and everything really hard. Like that doesn't bother me at all. So I think it just depends on you know what I mean? Like there's just different parts that you just have to get used to.
Yeah, and I guess, doing enough of them to sort of identify what your weaknesses are, and then kind of
it does seem like working, like really having a teammate you stick with, practicing with them, like just being really on is the biggest part of it.
I agree with that. I think like partner selection, I mean, obviously we're not at your level, but for Chipper and I, it was, we train together all the time, so sort of can give each other shit if needed, and we can also support each other if needed. And I think that's really, and obviously comparable sort of swim speeds and running speeds, so it isn't like the super stressy thing. But I guess if you don't have that sort of built in, it might be hard to find.
Yeah, I mean, we know when you're going through a low patch and when you're going through a high patch, just like any good training partner. So yeah, as we mentioned, Swimrun is much bigger in Europe, and it's definitely growing in the United States. Where do you kind of see Swimrun getting a large hyper growth or like a large scale of growth in the United States? What would kind of unlock that for Swimrun in the U.S.? And
before you answer that, I want you to also think about like if you were the swimrun czar of the U.S. Like, I know you have a lot of opinions about Ironman and the pro scene in general. Like if you just decide how the sport should grow in the U.S. Like I'm really curious to hear what sort of your opinions would be on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I tried to pitch Outside Magazine this year on a story about how this is the year swim run's going to blow up in the U.S. Like they didn't believe me, but I think I'm right. I think this is the year.
We think you're right too.
We think you're right too.
I know. Go tell my editors that. So I do think it's been kind of growing grassroots for a little while, and now you're seeing, the first Ötillö race. You're seeing more and more merit races over here. You're finally getting this whole like formalized system of like points and all that shit. But it's really up then the level of competition, which I think then more and more people are hearing about it then because, the fastest person they know is like, oh, I went and did this swim run and it was really hard, right? Mm-hmm. And so I do think it is like this is the year it kind of explodes, largely probably because of the Ötillö Catalina race. Like everyone I know is doing that.
So are we,
including us.
Right.
Well, and also because of the Low Tide Boyz podcast, I think that's gonna
and the
really
memes
gonna move the needle.
Exactly.
And the
really
memes on Instagram, they're fire, straight fire.
All of them.
But I do think like part of why it's kind of felt like it's been simmering for a few years is that. So like there is this aspect of Ironman, like you mentioned. Ironman has grown very corporately, like very top down for the last like an Ironman has expanded massively. There's like 200 races in the world or something. Wow. But they're very, like this is our franchise, this is the model. And Swimrun, it seems like has grown very like ground up largely. Like Ötillö coming over here is like kind of the first big like top down kind of directive. Other than that, it's been very grassroots, right? It's been very like somebody wants to put on a race in their backyard.
Right. Well,
which has
Odyssey
made it
Swimrun,
slower. Yeah.
that's kind of their thing, right? Like I think the two founders raced Ötillö and then came back, and they're like pretty accomplished triathletes or whatever. Did that race, came back, and they're like, we should put one here.
Yeah, and I think they've done a great. Yeah, Lars has done a great job, and I've talked to him about this. The other thing I think he's done really, really well, which I think is what's going to ultimately, like, they're playing the long game, right? Like, they're not growing huge right now, but I think in the long run it'll be better for them. What he's done really well is keep it really hard, and all the appeal of Swimrun, like, it's crazy. He didn't like make it easier to attract beginners, right?
Right.
But at the same time, he's made it very inclusive, which triathlon has struggled with this. Triathlon tries to be like, oh, we're going to make it easier for beginners and get new people. But then they like make it really easy. They like dumb it down. And so then you lose like all the people who have loved what's hard about it. And Swimrun's done a good job being both those things. So I kind of hope they keep that, right? They keep that part of it. Cause yeah, it's like 50% women at, most of these Odyssey Swimrun races, which is
that's pretty awesome.
high. Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not because they made it easier. So.
Yeah. And it's not because they had some multi-million-dollar initiative to try to get women
or a
to
marketing campaign or a pink bib. And I feel that Swimrun, triathlon is notoriously not very approachable from like a financial standpoint. The average salary of a triathlete or an amateur triathlete is, $140,000 or some crazy shit like that. Swimrun, you kind of only need your shoes and a wetsuit, maybe a couple hundred. So, a much easier nut to crack to get on board with, I guess.
Yeah, people get really overwhelmed with like the equipment for Swimrun. It's like one of the most common things I get emails about it. They're like, what do I need? I'm doing my first swim run and I'm so confused. And you're like, don't worry about it. You can like make your own stuff.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. Like, don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah. You guys made your own pool buoys, right? I feel like that's like the rite of passage for all
DIY night over some beers.
It seems like now you can actually buy stuff. You don't need to like stick a screwdriver in your pool buoy yourself anymore, but
what's the fun in that though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So let's get back to, if you could grow the sport. It sounds like I love the idea of, keeping them hard, but keeping them inclusive and just welcoming, but not really. I feel like Ironman, if they can make the swim downhill, they would. Anyway.
They do sometimes, right?
Like
downriver.
Downstream. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, like I want the sport to grow. We want the sport to grow in the U.S. We think it's a lot of fun. We think it's a great way for people to get out, experience nature, trail run, do all these things that we love to do.
Have a good adventure.
But I'm super worried of sort of the Ironmans of the world kind of coming in and just, seeing, or like private equity coming in and seeing, oh, there's a market for this. So let's just, cookie cutter this thing into death.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a lot up to Ötillö, right? Like Ötillö is the Ironman of Swimrun. Yeah. They are the ones that like own the world championship, that now have this like qualifying system with like points and shit. And like when they put a brand on a race, the Catalina one, like people sign up, right? So it's going to be a lot up to them, I think. Yeah. How that happens.
So you sound pretty aligned with sort of Lars's approach.
I like Lars
on growing the sport. Yeah.
We hope to have him on the podcast soon.
Oh, good.
Yeah. How do you? I like one thing that they did do was go with the solo category. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting
versus
question.
Having the partner.
Because like it kind of isn't Swimrun, right? Like I have a friend who's like, "Oh, I'm going to do Catalina by myself," and I was like, "What the fuck is that? Like that's not a thing." So it's weird.
Like a bad idea.
Yeah, it sounds like a really bad idea. He also was like, "Oh, I don't think I need a wetsuit," and I was like, "You definitely."
That sounds like even a worse idea.
But yeah, I get why you have the solo to like get people into it. Like give them an avenue in. Because it is hard to find. I think finding the partner is like what overwhelms people. Not doing it with a partner. But honestly, like the solo thing doesn't really seem like swim. It seems like it's not the real thing, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like the craziest shit about it is that you're tied to somebody. Right. Like that's the most fun about it, in my opinion.
I do get that like people who are new don't have a pool of other people who are also
Yeah.
able to do this, right? So
Yeah.
Okay, I have an app idea. Tinder, but for finding your swim run partner.
finding your swimrun
Yeah.
partner. Yeah, okay.
Okay,
It's
I
very
do a
hard.
130
we
per
can-
100. Swipe right.
We can call it Swimder.
Nice. That
We'll
makes
workshop that a little bit.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, I think that's a good point. I think for us, we came up in the triathlon. We're both part of the same triathlon club. I'm still a member. Chipper's not. We're gonna work on that too.
Wow.
But
Put me on blast
just
like
put you
that?
on blast. That's the way it has to be. But yeah, like maybe that's something to talk about in future podcasts as well. Just like, all right, finding partners, like, the importance of that and where you can sort of make this community since it's growing.
Yeah, Kelly, I'm curious where you think Swimrun kind of fits into like the endurance puzzle sort of. Is it kind of more tied really closely to triathlon, or is it more of like a trail running thing, or is it these like big open water swimming groups
Right.
really get into it? Where do you kind of see it fitting in?
I mean, you're going to get the most percentage of people from triathlon, right? The same way like most triathletes were runners, most swim runners will be triathletes. Like it's like a
Yeah.
natural progression. There's also, I feel like there's been this growing trend for like adventure races, and more athletes want to do a variety of races over their year. Like more and more people want to have some trail runs and some triathlons and some swimming and some, like more and more people want to do a bunch of different things. And so probably Swimrun just like fits into a calendar.
Right. Well, and I think
like,
especially
that's-
for
yeah.
someone like you, you're swimming and running all the time anyway. So it's like, hey, why don't I just, jump into this crazy thing?
Right. I think that's probably like if we talk about trends for the next decade, right? I was just reading a bunch of like trends for the last decade pieces. The direction of endurance athletes is definitely a more varied, like that's people want off-road, they want grassroots, they want weird, and they want a variety of experiences. They don't, I mean, some of that will be corporate Ironman and some of it will not. Like they want a variety of things.
Yeah, they
So-
might do an Ironman earlier in the spring and then do a Sparta race in the summer and then some trail running in the winter and then throw a swim run race in there sometime in the fall.
Exactly.
Something like that. Did any of your sponsors have any particular interest in Swimrun or any negative? I mean, you don't have to call anyone out if you don't want, but did anyone say, what is this sport about? Or was anyone really excited and wanted to kind of support it? Or
I think people are pretty excited. Yeah, I think people are pretty excited. Like my two biggest sponsors are Smash West Queen and Noon, and they are both like definitely getting into it. I mean, I'm not positive if Noon's sponsored events yet, but I feel like they have because they very much have their finger on the pulse. So they've all been very into it, and Xterra is my wetsuit sponsor, and I'm trying to convince them that they need a Swimrun wetsuit. Like they don't have one yet. And that's like the next big thing.
Yeah, I mean that seems surprising to me. I mean, Xterra is such a household
Staple,
name in triathlon.
exactly.
I mean, I feel like you ask
Everyone
10
has I feel everyone has an Xterra
if you
suit.
ask
at
like
some
Everyone
10
has an Xterra.
triathletes, like everyone, it was 8 of them will be that was their first wetsuit or their current wetsuit.
Oh yeah, no, because they're good, and so so they need. I almost was just gonna cut off the legs on my Xterra, and then I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. I just saw Roca came out with a swim run specific
They
in
did.
Zone 3 and Orca.
And they're selling it
bunch
for
of
like $600 or something.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
you gotta
that's how it is.
keep the lights on somehow, right? Well, I think this has been a really interesting conversation. Why don't you tell us sort of on, as we kind of dismount, what are your swim run plans for this year and into next year?
Yeah, so I wanted to do Catalina. I mean, that was obviously, right? It's like the California one. But my partner she wants to be pregnant again. So I need to find a different partner. And so we go back to like the whole partner situation. And it's very tough. Like I thought about doing it with my husband, but he's not as good a swimmer as me, which is just makes it. And I just don't feel like it would end well. I don't know how people do this.
Yeah, I mean, that'll probably end in like marriage counseling or something.
Yeah, you're like, oh. I don't know.
I'm most surprised by the couples that go out and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, that's the most impressive
It's
feat. out
either
of any of this.
rock solid relationships. Well, and also
team, the one mixed relay team that's like, or the one mixed team that's like the best in the U.S. and like really, really good. Like I've talked to them a bunch, and they're former triathletes too. and they're married and they're really good. And you're like, how do you do this? I don't know.
That's really funny. I mean, I feel like, just the way like Ötillö rules are set up, like if you want to qualify for the world championship, like you need to have a good teammate.
It's conducive
like,
to keeping the same team. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about this in other podcasts as well, but like to qualify, it's team based. So if you switch a teammate, you're essentially starting over.
Your point accumulation. Yeah.
Which is a problem.
So I don't know right now because I don't actually know what I'm doing this year, but I would like to do another swim run in there, try to work it into my schedule.
Awesome. Well, let us know and we'll make sure we plug it on our show since you're our first guest. So
yeah,
really appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Yeah, thanks guys. This will be fun this year. We'll see.
Yeah,
for sure. Where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah,
and
so
your podcast?
I'm at Kelly D'Omera on all the socials, and I do a newsletter and podcast about triathlon-ish stuff called If We Were Riding, and you can just ifwewereriding.com and get you there. So
yeah, and it's a great show. I listen to it religiously, and I'm not just saying that because you're our guest. I actually do listen to it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, and happy training.
Thanks.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you so much for listening to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, and if you're so inclined, leave us a review.
You can also sign up for our newsletter at lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z. You can also check out our meme page at the Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. And if you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us an email, lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course, our wives for their support and tolerance of our hobbies and endurance activities.
Until next time, get out there, go for a swim.
Then go for a run.
And then another swim.
And then another soggy run.
And just keep it going.
Keep it going.
Come on,